We all have learned ABC in our school, right? We all are literate. But do you know the ABC of finance? Because if you don't know the ABC of finance, how do you expect to understand finance? If you do not understand finance, how are you going to make money? Isn't this the most trivial and fundamental question of it all? Do we know the ABC of finance? My name is Arpit Arora. I'm India's leading personal finance expert and passive income coach, and I'm on the quest to transform the financial minds of more than 1 million middle-class Indians so that they can transform their financial results. And this is exactly why I'm making this video for you today, to help you understand more about money, more about finance. So when I'm talking about the ABC of finance, what am I really talking about? Let's get started with A itself. And A stands for alpha. What is alpha? Alpha simply means the higher return that you're able to make versus your benchmark. So what is benchmark? I'll give you a simpler example. You're in the IT industry. When you look at your business versus the IT industry, you're always benchmarking yourself. You're benchmarking looking at you grew 30% this year, IT industry grew by 20%, you created an alpha of 10%, the extra return over the benchmark. So simply like that, mutual funds compare their returns with their own benchmarks. Mostly these are indexes like Nifty 50, Sensex, Nifty 500, so on and so forth. So whatever return extra they're able to make more than the benchmark, which is the moment of pride for them, that is known as alpha. So alpha is the basis. Every fund is looking to create more alpha. If you're creating more alpha, you are growing your money faster. Growing your money faster helps you to achieve whatever you want faster and easier, right? So let's get started with B now. So A is alpha, B is beta. Now you're thinking, what is beta? Beta is the level of volatility versus your benchmark. Now again, benchmark would be IT industry like we spoke about, right? So if the IT industry is volatile, or what is happening in the IT industry, the same way your business is also going up and down like IT industry. For example, IT industry is likely to be affected with the businesses coming back to normal after the lockdown, and they will fall by 30%. So the probability that your business will also fall 30%, matching up to the level of volatility, not the fall, not the return, but the volatility. So if the volatility of your business is equal to the industry, which is IT industry, and both are equal, then your beta is 1. If you're less affected by what is going to happen in the IT industry, being in the IT industry, then your beta is less than 1. If your volatility is more prone, you're more prone to volatility, if anything happens to the IT industry, then your beta is more than 1. So in the context of investing, when you're investing in places where they are more volatile than their benchmark indexes like Sensex, Nifty, so on and so forth, then your volatility or your beta is 1 plus. It could be 1, 1.2, 1.3, 2, 3, 4, whatever. If it's less than that, if you're not affected by what is happening in the financial markets than your benchmark index, then your beta is less than 1. Ideally, your beta for low risk investor should be less than 1, for a medium risk investor should be about 1, for a high risk investor should be more than 1. This is, it's not really a rule book, but just a simple guideline. Now C is the third one, and C stands for compounding. Now who said that eighth wonder of the world is compounding, the power of compounding? Albert Einstein. He says the people who learn compounding earn it, the people who don't learn it pay it. So where would you want to be? Obviously earning, right? So what compounding basically, if you go back to the school, you'll remember the lessons between simple interest and compounding interest. Simple interest, you invest 100 rupees, you get say 8% return. Every year you make 88 rupees, but your 8 rupees is not reinvested. It is not growing. That money is kept separate, only 100% is growing at 8%. This other 8 rupees is just sitting there. It's not doing anything. When you use the power of compounding, you are investing 100 rupees, growing at 8%. Now the next year 108 is your base number. On that you're getting another 8%. So that way the next year it will be 116 point something. And then the next year then 125, and then so on and so forth. So you're not just growing at simple interest. And when you compare simple interest, it grows like this, compounding interest grows like this. So there is a very big difference in the graph of growth over a period of time. Eventually, power of compounding takes years to really show you big results. Minor results you can see. But what is that one asset where people use a lot of power of compounding? Any guesses? Equity markets. Yes, investing into long-term investing into SIPs, investing into the equity markets, most likely in indexes rather than stocks, is the surest way of creating the power of compounding. When you're investing consistently, you're investing monthly, you're investing in indexes, that helps you to create power of compounding. And you'll be surprised to know if you grow your money by 3% extra over a matter of 20 years, your result is 50% more money by the end of 20 years. Isn't that crazy? Because I did this calculation between 12 to 15% and found this. 50% you'll make more money if you just grow by money more than 3%. Where is this 3% coming from? Compounding. So that is how important the power of compounding is. Now I'm going to skip back right to the XYZ. So what is X? X stands for XIRR. What is XIRR or IRR? Other word for this is also CAGR. So what is all of this? XIRR stands for X is uneven times. Okay, uneven internal rate of return. IRR, internal rate of return. So XIRR or IRR, which is the same thing, how is that different from the other return? So there is an absolute return and there is an XIRR return. Absolute return, for example, you invest your money today for 1 year, you grow 10%, 100 becomes 110. If you look at XIRR, 100 rupees invested for 1 year, after 1 year, 10% growth happens. Your XIRR is also 1%, 10%. But if you look at the same number in 6 months, you are growing your money by 10% in 6 months. Simple growth is 10%. If you were able to grow your money at 10% in 6 months, XIRR will be more than 20%. Why? Because this is going at the pace of growth. Not just the absolute growth, but the pace of growth. So CAGR, XIRR, IRR, all of these numbers are very important because whenever you look at the performance report of your investments, don't look at absolute returns. It's a wrong number. Always look at XIRR. And ideally, the longer the period, the more better performance you will see in the XIRR, or more clearer performance, should I rather say. Now let's go to Y. What is Y? Y is YTM. YTM stands for yield to maturity. What is yield to maturity? Simple. The yield that you're going to make or the return you're going to make if you invest into a financial product until its maturity. What most of the people do wrong, especially when they're investing into the debt markets, is that they invest in debt markets and they only look at the past data. They look at how this particular fund or this investment or this financial product has done in the last 3 years. Well, looking at that, you might be looking at how it has done. That has almost nothing to do with what it is going to do in the future. So like Warren Buffett says that you can't drive a car looking at the rear view mirror. YTM is the front glass for you when you're driving that car. So you need to look at the yield or the return to maturity of a particular debt investment when you're investing into it. It does not matter what return it gave in the past. As long as this debt investment does not default, you are guaranteed to get the YTM, which is the yield to maturity, as a percentage return. So especially when you're investing in debt, if you do not know what YTM is, you're definitely going to fall for a big blunder. You know, almost 20,000 crore rupees have been defaulted by debt funds in the last few years. Why? Because people do not look at the quality of asset they're investing and they do not look at the YTM. These are the two main reasons. Now comes to the last one. I hope you're learning a lot from this. The last one is zero coupon bonds. What is that? So again, as a part of debt investments, there are different bonds. Some bonds can give you monthly income, some can give you quarterly, some can give you yearly. Now there are some bonds which do not give you any income. So you invest in the bond, you will invest 100 rupees. If it grows at 10%, you will not get the 10 rupees out. It will not give you a payout. However, this 10 rupees will increase in the price of the bond. So the next year, the price of the bond will be at 110 rupees. Like a stock price, it increases. Like a property prices increases. But the increment is only because the coupon or the interest payment to you is not paid to you, it is added back in the value of the bond. So 100 becomes 110 after 1 year, and so on and so forth. So why would one invest into this bond? The great benefit of investing in zero coupon bonds is that after 1 year's worth of investment, if you take out your money, you're only having to pay 10% tax. Now compare this with most other taxable bonds which give you annual, quarterly or yearly income. All of them are fully taxed. So if you're in the 33%, 30%, 20%, even 15% tax bracket, you're paying higher taxes. These type of bonds help you to reduce your taxes. So this is why zero coupon bonds, especially for 15% or more tax slab people, it's a beautiful investment product. So I hope you got to know a little bit about the ABC and XYZ of finance. I hope you are financial acumen, your financial IQ is also going up as we speak. For more such videos, keep on following my channel. Go through these videos, ask me questions. I'm more than happy to help. Looking forward to seeing you in the next video. God bless you.